What up? What is up, everybody? Welcome back to I Am Outraged. We were not live last week. I was in Texas eating copious amounts of barbecue, and I put on like 5 or 15 pounds since then. But I'm back in my home studio looking crispy as ever, and my guest, who typically looks crispier than me, might not look quite as crispy tonight, but I'm sure he's going to come off just as crispy. That's my man, Mr. Nick Ercolano. You can find him on Twitter at Nick Ercolano. Let's bring him on the screen. Look at this handsome devil. What's up, man?
Man, I'm operating in like 480p right now, and I don't know what's causing it. So, like you said, I'm gonna try to let the crispiness flow from my mouth rather than the picture.
Do it. Well, no, I mean, it looks good. We were talking pre-show about lighting and cameras and shit like that, and it always makes a difference. But you do have one of the best recording settings, I mean, industry-wide. I mean, is there stuff to this day as you guys continue to sort of build this, BDGE media brand? Is there more stuff that you want to add to it in terms of like video production tools and stuff like that? Or do you feel like you're at the beginning?
Yeah, I mean, it kind of always feels like you're at the beginning, to be honest. Like, you always feel like there's a million other things that you could be doing relative to where you are. Like, I got my first ever, like, I don't know what lighting you have in front of you, but I have like a legit softbox light now in front of me, and it finally made me feel, after like 7 years of doing this, it made me feel like a real YouTuber. And then we got a softbox light for like the studio out there, and we got a bunch of lights, and we're starting to finally learn how to actually maneuver the cameras around rather than just like having everything set to auto. So like, listen, we're not like video wizards over here. We're just fucking a lot of things up and trying to fine tune them as we go.
I love it, man. No, I do. I have one softbox in front of me. It's at a particular angle, and if that thing moves a degree, I lose this whole thing. It's like when the lights come on at the club, it's like, so I don't want to expose this look, man. But again, the thing that I've loved about what it is that you do, man, you're so outside the box as a content creator. I think often we see people that just, stick to the bread and butter, chalk information, chalk way to deliver stuff. And you guys have gone in such a different direction. And because of it, you've seen immense growth. And I was kind of interested because we were talking pre-show about sort of what you see as trends in the industry. And I know you mentioned this. I remember you actually writing a thread about shorts. When shorts first kind of became a thing on YouTube, do you remember doing this? You were actually kind of prophetic, like speaking into the future of what you felt like would happen. And do you feel like the way things are trending, short form content just continues to be more and more of the favorite?
Yeah, I mean, it's not even me saying it at this point. It's like, look at every platform. Look at not only the platform that's popping off to a degree that no other platform can even touch right now, TikTok, but look at YouTube. They're going all in on shorts. Look at Instagram. The biggest trend, the biggest push that they made recently was pushing Instagram Reels. And it's this continuation of trying to move this younger generation over in a format that's like really native to them. And I find myself, now that we're like really deeply invested into TikTok and the platforms that like allow you to put the vertical videos out, I am now a heavy personal consumer of the content. And I'm not gonna lie, like, I'm sucked into these platforms. I think they're awesome. I think there's a time and place for them, and I think that is right now. And I would never talk to someone right now and tell them to get into like YouTube or get into podcasting, because these platforms they're telling you who they are. They're telling you where they're going. There's no reason to try to fight against them. The growth is like super fucking viral right now if you're willing to put the work in, and the ROI is crazy because there's so many people that are used to these older ways, and they don't want to make the jump, and that's the herd mentality. So if everyone's still there, then you, being one of the few that does make the jump, are going to be one of the few that hits that like viral kind of fucking launch pad off of it. So it's like, yeah, that's where everyone needs to be. And I was telling you before show, it's like the energy, the mindset needs to shift. It's like those things, they don't need to be secondary anymore. For a long time, people were like, oh, you got to do this and this. Like, take your long form and cut it into like short form little pieces and piece of content to put on these other platforms. It's like, nope. It's like, now we're making shit for these content. And if I have time, maybe once a week, I'll make a long form piece of content that goes out there, because that's how you're going to grow, man. We've watched a lot of people over the last year and a half go from 0 to 100,000. Like, you look at some of the biggest names in the industry that have been around for 20 years that will not hit the same number of followers that like 10 people I could think of off the top of my head grew on TikTok in the last year alone. And that, if that shit doesn't scream into your fucking face loud enough, I don't know what will.
Yeah. No, I mean, you're right. And I see it all the time. And as somebody that's, it was funny because you said that you and I were sort of late to the podcasting YouTube game. And like, based on your subscriber base and my subscriber base on YouTube, I was very clearly late to it. And it's like, it's kind of an interesting thing, like trying to climb on the back of a dinosaur as everybody else is like figuring out, no, they're like, no, we're going to be here. So by the time I become
it's like
that guy,
they got to hop onto the back and to the neck of it, but you're trying to hop onto the fucking wagging tail at the end of it. And it's like, yeah, maybe you get lucky and catch that shit and then climb up top of it, but why not just catch the fucking Corvette that's right behind it that's going to zoom past it, you know?
I never knew there was a Corvette out there in the prehistoric age. What I need though, Nick, this is what I need. I need this therapy. I got to figure out like, how do I, so your thoughts, I mean, if you were somebody, if you're starting fresh today, and you're dividing your time 0% to 100 in the content creation world, how much of that are you putting into YouTube? 50%?
Not even close.
Damn.
Way below that. Like, I'm not kidding when I tell you, if I started right now, and people might not believe me, but if I started tomorrow, it would be like 90% TikTok. 90% TikTok. I would make every clip probably a minute and a half to 3 minutes, and then make sure that I was able to chop that down to I would use YouTube for YouTube Shorts. That would be my main emphasis of doing it, because the growth is just unreal. Like, I'm doing the podcast I'm telling you with Jack Settleman called Big Content, and he had been doing YouTube for a long time, and he already has a big brand. He's 1 million followers on Snapchat, and he's had that for a while. He's been on YouTube for a long time. They only got to like 20,000 ish subscribers on YouTube after funneling their 1 million person audience from Snapchat. And he started doing shorts like 2 months ago, and they went from 30,000 subs. I think they're at 150 to 160,000 subscribers just off of shorts. Like, he got that fucking silver plaque from YouTube in like 2 months. And I've been working for that shit for like 7 fucking years. The growth on these platforms is, dude, we went from 0 to 600,000 on TikTok in 6 months. You can't make this shit up. Like, it's so real and it's so in front of you. I would not waste my time anywhere else.
Wow. This is disheartening. This is, I mean, I needed the truth serum.
It should be a fucking wake-up call for everybody. I'm serious, dude.
I mean, the less than 50% YouTube take, I mean, it kind of blows my mind. I mean, can I ask you this question? So you're somebody who, you're fairly transparent about what you make, year to year, and you're talking about the ROI. Like, where do you see, when we talk about return on investment and content creation, growth is obviously one of those terms, not financially, but just you as a brand, how much traffic you're getting, who's watching how many views, where are they following those links to? But from a monetary standpoint, like, where do you see the money in sort of the short format?
That's a great question. And to be completely honest, it's not something I've totally grappled with, because the growth on those platforms is really new to our brand. And our YouTube and our TikTok content is very, very varied, and it's very different. We have seen a nice funnel, though, of people coming from TikTok that, might have found us from one thing, but then be like, oh, they do fantasy football too. Like, these guys are good at that. Like, I want to follow them along with that. So monetarily, that's still something we're trying to figure out. I think a lot of that's going to come from TikTok. For us, has been sort of like an entertainment platform. It's where we could like let loose and play games and like fuck around a little bit. And that typically ties itself to sponsorship deals. We've actually been able to sell a shitload of merch on TikTok because people have, been entertained by us. And when you're able to sell through entertainment or give off value through entertainment, people want to buy the merch to kind of like support what you're doing. Yep. So the tie between the two is tough. There are definitely a lot of people doing it really, really well on TikTok though. And I think also what I want to experiment with next summer. So like one of the products among like every brand in the industry basically has like a draft guide that's sell during the summer. I almost think it makes sense if you have some really big, audacious, info-filled draft guide that you sell to like YouTube. People consume your 60-minute long videos or podcasts like 3 times a week. And then all of a sudden you're making content on TikTok that's 60 seconds long. Why not take the same product and make it a 60-second version of the product? Like, if you're doing mini content, sell mini products, right? Yeah. So it's kind of my thesis on it right now. I haven't had the growth through the summer yet to really experiment with it, but next summer, these are things that I will be thinking about. So I think it's still about being able to attach the value of what you're providing to the audience with like what they want to consume. If they want short form content, if they want quick hits, then fucking productize that, you know, do the same thing.
Yep. No, that makes sense. I mean, your audience will kind of tell you where to go. And even guys like Mr. Beast to this day, like talked about like how much trial and error went into becoming the largest, YouTube subscriber account there is. And I totally get the short form thing. TikTok's been something I've kind of avoided because, until I hear this from somebody like you who's sort of been there, like you're already like way down the road and I'm getting a phone call. You're like, hey, don't fucking do that. I've already seen, I've already seen the traffic accident, take the exit. So like hearing this is a big helpful like trigger for me because I study, YouTube analytics and look into the algorithm and that shit's always changing. But the competition is so difficult. And I know that TikTok was designed to help people grow really quickly. And it's you're saying exactly right. Like that audience there
Let me tell you, it's not even designed to grow quick. Here's what's beautiful about TikTok. The For You page is basically going to change social media forever because it's only interest based. It's not even merit based yet. You don't have to have proven anything to make a great piece of content. TikTok says this might be your first piece of content, but if it's a fucking balling piece of content, people are going to see that shit. And that's what's beautiful about the way they've made their algorithm. So when you're on TikTok, you're seeing the best creators every time you swipe and the best content from the best creators. That's why it's so well done. And there are not a lot of people doing fantasy content well on TikTok right now. So if someone like yourself goes on there and proves that you're as good as you are, because I know you're very good at this, you work really fucking hard, you've been watching you do it for a long time, you are already going to be better than like 97% of the creators on there. Thus, that will quickly fucking siphon itself out. That's the beautiful part about TikTok is like it really cuts through the bullshit quickly. People want to make fun of it and be like, oh, it's stupid and this and this. I think it's fucking awesome. I think it's like the best way to trim the fat because it finds exactly what people are looking for. It's interest-based, not merit-based.
Yeah. And I mean, and if you're somebody that has rankings or, like you said, a draft guide and you want to advertise it, I mean, there's a way to obviously do analysis and tie it back to where you personally have a player like this ranked. And if you want more content, blah, 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 and you can drive people that direction. Now, it makes total sense to me, man. I've been working on the YouTube thing and trying to grow, and these videos take a long time. And you said it exactly right pre-show. You said, you think about the 5 hours you spend creating, a 12-minute piece of fucking video content on YouTube, and how many shorts could that be? I mean, obviously, like based on how quick you can bang them out if you're set up. I mean, that could be 15 shorts, 20 shorts. I have no idea. So,
can I give you? I'll give you a quick example right now. Our boy Noah Hills, No More Parties.
Yep.
I bet you probably didn't even know he was on TikTok. He got on TikTok. He got on TikTok. I want to say 2 weeks ago, maybe. And he's been working hard. I don't know if he's editing these himself or who's editing them for them because we're not doing them for him, I don't think, unless someone on my team is doing them and I didn't know about it. But he's put up 15 videos over the last 15 days, probably one a day. Yeah. He's had a video go for 32,000 views, 84,000 views, 37,000 views. Like these are real numbers over just the last 2 weeks. He just started on TikTok and these are happening right now. If you go check him out, it's just No More Parties. The same thing as his Twitter. This is like real results from people that we really fucking know personally, and it's just happening right now. It really is, and like right now is the golden age for it to be taken advantage of.
Man, you sold me. Yeah, you absolutely. I want to cut this fucking stream right now.
Go, dude. Honestly, if you want to do that, I'm not gonna blame. I would feel like this was a success if you wanted to do that.
Yeah, no, I really do feel like you've lifted me up from a dark place, and I think that I'm gonna be better for it. I really will. I created a. Truth be told, I did create a TikTok once upon a time, and it was the stupidest fucking idea ever. I had created a TikTok because I thought it would be funny as a comedy one to have this guy that had these really like fucked up interactions with an Alexa and Amazon device. And if you search, you might find that out there. But
what's the name of it?
Dude, I don't even remember. This was like 4 years ago.
You fucking remember, don't
I'm concerned. I don't. I've got short-term memory loss. I don't.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't remember. But
I remember every fucking stat from every rookie running back dating back 17 years, but you've got short-term memory loss.
I do. It was a terrible idea, and I hope to God you don't ever find it or anybody who listens to this podcast. But nonetheless, Nick, it's a lesson learned, but I think creating a TikTok is probably the answer. I need to make sure I do that.
You've got mail.
Okay, Nick, first email of the show. They always come in. Let's see what this baby says. This one's to you. Nick, send this man to the NBA Finals. Did you know that Nate Liss is 6-0 in the Bash? Let's pay our respects. Signed, a fan of the undefeated. Now, I
did know that.
You did know that?
I did know that. I keep very, very close track on all the undefeated teams left in the Bash. There are 21 right now remaining. I don't know if you've been like in the Discord and filling out the survivor pool, but we opened up a survivor pool for all the undefeated teams for the remainder of it starting last week. And we have a little tournament going on where there's going to be a nice, fat sack of a prize going on. So listen, if you continue to earn your keep, you will be winning some nice prizes over there.
Man, I just want you to fly me out to New York so I can hang out with the crew. You don't even have to send me to the finals, bro. Let me come hang out for a day. I just want a day in the life.
Okay. I don't think you want that, but
okay, well, I mean, if it's an option, I might consider it. All right. So, Nick, I brought you on this week because what I wanted to talk about is something that seems to take effect in fantasy football more often than not. We always see it in the early part of the season, and we see it most often with players that just really haven't proven themselves yet. Or even in this case, some players that are performing, underwhelmingly over the course of a multitude of games, whether it's, every other game or it's, a string of games. People overreact. We see them in Dynasty, drop them way down the rankings. We see a bunch of turncoat analysis that used to love this guy. Now it's like, fuck this guy. And it changes so fast. So what I want to do is go through a handful of names that I think have been pretty prominent in this group and get your opinion on these players. So let's start out with the first guy right off the top. It's not a surprise. Let's talk about Mr. Unlimited, Russell Wilson. Now, Russell Wilson has put together a stink bomb of a season, and a lot of people have begun to write him off.
You want to talk about bad content creators, bro. That's a way to start off the fucking show.
Well, look, man, he's earned his wealth. I mean, is he just mailing it in at this point?
That's so. Animals in our office, he's a big Broncos fan. He's one of the guys, and he did not want Russ when they got him. Even when they first originally got him, when it was cool to love Russ coming to the Broncos as a Broncos fan, he was like, no fucking way. And he's watching him this year. And Animal is more of like I go off my gut, my instinct. I'm not diving into the numbers and analytics. He's a football guy, right. And he's like, Russ just plays with no fucking heart on this team. They don't believe in him. They don't follow him. They're like, he's a corny ass dude. And now he's not playing up to his ability. There's not a lot to follow. Like, you could follow a dog, right? You could follow a guy that's got some fucking fight in him. He might not be the most athletic dude, but if you know he's going to put everything out there for you and he's going to try to lead your fucking team, you can get behind that as Broncos country, right? Yeah. But if you're not that dude, which I don't think these grown ass men are starting to look up to Russ anymore with the way that he's portraying himself out to the world, like, you got to be that primo talent that you had been for a long time, and he hasn't showed that with us. So, man, I don't want to be dramatic, but it feels like Russ, I don't know what's not clicking here. I mean, the head coach, it's been an absolute disaster there, and I want to say a lot of it can be that, because you start to see a lot of different things go wrong in that Broncos coaching tree, right? It's like we are not understanding like time when the game is at the end of the game. We're not understanding when to use timeouts. We're not understanding substitutions, these committee splits. Like, what are we doing here? So you'd like to think that, okay, we see one thing go wrong, two things go wrong, three things go wrong. Okay, it's probably a coaching problem, but there have just been some fucking errant throws by Russell Wilson that you're like, those weren't throws that he ever made back in Seattle. So it feels like there's something bigger going on. Do quarterbacks, I think why we're so hesitant for this to happen with Russell Wilson is we don't really see quarterbacks just like fall off a cliff out of nowhere, right? Like, you do see it with like Matt Ryan and Big Ben, but they're older, right? They're like, okay, you can kind of start seeing their arms start to deflate a little bit, turn into fucking spaghetti a little bit. And you're like, yeah, they're done within a year or two. Maybe they could be game managers that are good. But Russ went from elite to like, what the fuck's going on with this guy? So it makes us be like, we don't have a comparison for what's happening here. So it doesn't really work in our brain. But if I had to go 51-49 in one favor, I would say I'm not happy as a Broncos fan with the long-term viability of this fucking contract.
Well, we got AC says Russ definitely hasn't tucked in his shirt this year.
Me either.
Here we go.
Hold
Here
up.
we go. Content's Content's going A+ now. No, I think the thing for me with Russ, Russ is a guy who has thrived under pressure. And I think while in Seattle, he was a guy that came up from sort of, third round pick, but improbable odds in a sense, and made himself something great, made himself a popular media icon and this standout football player. And he always wanted out of Seattle, and he never had the balls to say it. And it was always this where there's smoke, there's fire, backdoor bullshit. Then he finally gets traded to the Broncos in what I still consider the biggest football trade in history. He's now on the Broncos, and we joked all along that wouldn't it be hilarious if that Broncos pick ended up being better than the Seattle pick? And he comes into Seattle in week 1 and gets a fucking loss handed to him. And I think that honestly broke him. I think right then, and seeing it trend now in a new offense, and like you said, a lot of organizational issues, coaching issues. But what's weird is it's not for lack of pass protection. He's still number 2 at the quarterback position. It's not a pass attempt issue. He's still top 4 all time. It's not an air yard issue. He's top 8 in the league. He's top 5 in the NFL in money throws. But we've just seen him sort of like fall off the map in terms of accuracy and confidence, and he's pulling the ball back. I think he's always been risk averse, but it's even more so now. It's really been accentuated by the failures that have sort of been laid before him. And I think that it's really getting in his head. And this is a guy that had a psychologist back in Seattle, and this was like a well-known thing. And so I really do think we're seeing like sports performance anxiety. And we've seen this with guys like Rick Ankiel and shit like that. And it sounds crazy, but you said it exactly right. What guy in his prime that was a Hall of Fame caliber player at 34, his super fucking prime, does this? There is no precedence for this, right?
Yeah, it's not like a physical fall off. Like if you go out there and you say, hey, throw the ball as far as you can, I bet he can place it on a dime exactly where he could 7 years ago, right? There's no difference there. It's like the inconsistency that we were not used to seeing. Like you said, he's still up there in money throws because he's got the capability of making that happen still in volume. But when you start to look at the efficiency numbers and in terms of like how often is he doing that, at what rate is he putting the ball on the fucking money, these are just not things that we've seen with Russ before. And like, dude, in today's world, it's a lot. The mental part of the game, not that it wasn't crazier back in the day, but you have a lot more to worry about with the external validation from everything happening. Like you go through with that trade and now you've got the whole world eyes on you, and there's just a lot of pressure. And like you said, like one thing makes you snap and then you get dug into a fucking hole, and it really feels like that's what's happening with Russ. And now we've got a couple injuries coming out of nowhere, and it's like, okay, is this a wash season? And now has it been a year and a half, 2 years since we've actually seen him be the old Russ, and now he's on the other side, 35, and now the questions start piling up, and before you know it, it's like Russ is gone, man. The old Russ. I miss the old Russ.
It's anxiety, man. Have you never been at like a crowded stadium and walked up to the urinal with like 20 dudes behind you, and you're like, we gotta go? And nope, never been a problem. Yeah, me neither. All right, let's go to the next one. Let's talk about another Wilson that I think people have lost some confidence in. Zach Wilson, a legit MFer. This year, some injuries. Really, really weird to see him step back into play after we saw Joe Flacco, who we thought was absolutely dust, who was averaging essentially 2 times the amount of pass attempts per game that Zach Wilson has been. What are your thoughts on Zach Wilson? And do you have any confidence in him? Like, if you had to say today, is he a guy that you want to own over the next 3 years in a dynasty league?
Oh, man. It feels like this is one that you kind of want to cut ties with early, but I'd rather not go that. If I own Zach Wilson, he's someone that I want to hold on to. I kind of want to see it play itself out because we're seeing this franchise move in like such a good direction. Like every bit of it feels solidified. The defense, the line, the running back group, the wide receivers, everything looks really good right now except for Zach Wilson. And some of me feels like he's had a tough string of bad luck events kind of happen to him, where it was the rookie year, there was a lot of these injuries. Now he's dealing with another injury during his sophomore year, and he hasn't really got to like settle into being a quarterback, man. And we see the ebbs and flows of these young quarterbacks like Trevor Lawrence had a horrendous full rookie year. And we haven't seen the ups for Zach Wilson that we have already for Trevor Lawrence. And it feels like, T-Law is going to have a couple bad games throughout this year, but we're like, okay, we've seen enough where he's in the right in the right direction, that we can believe in this guy. But Zach Wilson, like, really hasn't shown us anything so far this year. And that's what's got to scare you is, 75 attempts, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions. So when you're looking at the raw numbers, it's like, how excited can you be about this dude for the future? But it's just like, they've done everything they could. The Jets will do everything they possibly can to find out whether or not this guy is good. It's a small sample size still. I'm not ready to like say something dramatic and be like, we're done with Zach Wilson, because he's got the physical talent, I think, still. I still think he could turn it around. But yeah, I'd be a little bit fucking terrified right now if I owned him.
I mean, here's my biggest concern. So I remember before I had talked about the 2021 quarterback class, and I had said a tweet to something to the effect of, that somebody in this first round of one of these picks has to bust. And I remember somebody responded to me and just blatantly goes, no, they don't. And it's like, somebody's not going to work out in this class. And then we look at, I don't want to spoil the ending, but we look at guys like Fields, and we look at Lawrence, and we look at Lance, and we look at Mac Jones, and now Zach Wilson. And I don't think we can say with extreme confidence in any of these players that there's a superstar ceiling. I think the potential is there. But Zach Wilson, to me, is one of the most problematic because, yeah, we have seen an up and down career to this point. And one of the big things I brought up about him was last year the Jets were number 32 in the league in rush attempts. Then they drafted Breece Hall. And I was like, well, when the rush attempts come in, what happens to the pass attempts, right? Like necessarily they have to go down. And I think it's a big reason why, right now this team is ranked, top 13 in rush attempts, I believe, or number 17. And now they're top 6 in pass attempts, but that's been buoyed by the Joe Flacco numbers. And I went and I normalized it. If we take Zach Wilson's average of 25 pass attempts per game, the Jets are bottom 4 in the league. So the problem for me is if he's not going to be ultra efficient and he's going to be on low volume, what's the allure? Because I understand that, these guys, their career's not over. His career's not been written in, the sum of 15 games, 18 games. But like, when do these numbers really come into play? Like, if he's already not being given the opportunity to, throw it deep on a regular level, and I just don't know. I'm concerned with Zach Wilson a little bit. I don't necessarily want to own him in Dynasty. I mean, that's just my personal opinion on it.
No, I feel you, because it does beg the question. It's like, if you're not going to be an elite passer, then where's the upside if this franchise runs through Breece Hall for the next, 3 years on his rookie contract? So that is my concern too. It's like, at what point would the Jets actually flip the switch and say like, hey, we're going to be a pass heavy team now. Hey, we're going to look like the Chiefs. Hey, we're going to look like the Bills. And it's like, does anyone see that in the future with a dude like Zach Wilson? If that's not the case, like, you want to say, hey, he could be Kirk Cousins, or hey, he could be Derek Carr, hey, he could be those dudes. But those dudes had big fantasy numbers because there was a couple seasons where, for whatever reason, they're throwing the ball 600 times. And Kirk ends up with 35 passing touchdowns, and Derek Carr is top 5 in pass attempts in the league. And it's like, do we really see that with Zach Wilson? If he's not going to be efficient, he needs to have the volume. And if they don't trust him, he'll never get the fucking volume. So yeah, I mean, you got to be nervous with it. But again, it's like, I kind of want to be attached to teams where I think they're going in the right direction. Yeah. It's usually the inverse, though. It's like, usually teams are going in the right direction because they have the quarterback in place and they're building around it. Yeah. This team happens to have everything else in place, and we're hoping that like they can pull him along, which is probably the wrong way to look at it.
And maybe, and this is a guy that has what I think the highest level of turnover-worthy plays on PFF, but nonetheless, I mean, we know he's a guy that's got an arm. He has all the arm talent in the world. That's why he got drafted out of the college that he did, where he got drafted. But I think what we get hung up on, and I remember go back to 2014 with the receiver class, that receiver class fucked up the heads of everybody drafting wide receivers for the next 8 years because they had so many hits. And we think about how quick guys like Deshaun and Mahomes and Herbert and Burrow and these guys fired, as rookies. And we question now so early when these guys don't fire. It's like, well, they're probably not going to they're not going to hit this ceiling because they haven't yet.
To be fair, though, like, while that year was probably an outlier, I think now that we're normalizing what these players can do, I think a lot of them do end up breaking out really fucking early. It's like, yeah, we got to be patient with them, but it's like a lot of these players, like if they're good NFL players and if they are going to break out, they do it really quickly. So I do think there needs to be a changing of the mindset when we think about it that way too. It's almost like the minority of the dudes are the ones who take a while to break out now. So it's like, yeah, we need to be patient with these guys. We need to give them a couple of years. It's like, we can give them a couple of years, but everybody else who drafted the dudes that are breaking out in year 1 and 2 are the dudes that are winning their fucking championships now. So I think there doesn't, like, 2014, great wide receiver class. So over the last 4 in a row, we've had a luxury of wide receivers just flood in. And if you're not hitting these guys early and often, you're waiting for the third year breakouts that put you so far behind in fantasy leagues.
Yeah, no, I'm with you, man. I am getting addicted to the early breakout, and I do more and more feel like the way that the league has sort of shifted in terms of passing ability and protection of quarterbacks and receivers' ability to get open. It's like why aren't you breaking out early? Like everything is served up for you. If the targets are there, then why is it not happening? So this next guy that I want to ask you about, though, he might have the greatest turn of value of anybody that we're going to mention today, and that's Najee Harris, because I saw him in a lot of dynasty rankings as a top 3 running back last season. And fast forward to entering week 7 of this year on Keep Trade Cut and many other ranking services, he's well outside the top 12.
This was one, he was one of my biggest fades all summer. My mindset was if you're drafting him, you're going to get an RB1 who's very likely to finish in the RB 8 to 11 range. I don't think there's a lot of upside, because when you look at running backs that typically have upside, you have guys that are either explosive, guys that are in good offenses, behind good offensive lines that allow for big plays or a lot of goal line opportunities, or catch a ton of passes. And looking at what he did last year, he caught a ton of passes, but there was going to be a quarterback change. And I thought that was going to lead, a mobile quarterback change, which would lead to fewer dump offs. And then you're looking at a team that added weapons and George Pickens and Pat Freiermuth coming to his second year. And you're going to have less targets naturally, because he had games where he, 19 targets last year in a game. There's no way that those things were repeatable. They were also the single highest pass rate team in the NFL last year, I believe, behind just Tampa Bay. And it's there's no way under Mitch Trubisky the Steelers plan to have the single highest pass rate, in the NFL. So all these things added up to him regressing really, really, really strongly. So I was against him, and all those things pretty much played itself out, right? I don't know if he's injured. I don't know what's going on with the foot, but the dude is not explosive. He doesn't make plays. Jaylen Warren looks better than him if you watch any of the fucking games that those two play together. They're like night and day when it's like the Tony Pollard Zeke conundrum basically going on in Pittsburgh right now. It's ugly there for Najee, man. I don't know how much he brings to an offense outside of being the guy who's lucky to be in a good spot. If he goes to an offense that scores a lot of touchdowns, that ends up on the goal line a lot, I got no doubt he can go for 1,200 yards and 15 touchdowns. But being in the situation he's in right now, he's just not that guy. And the worst part about it is I fucking drafted him in my main league because he dropped to me at the 207. And I was like, oh, okay, you know what? Let me just get my one running back and then fade the position forever. And I knew when I took it, I was like, I'm going to regret the shit out of this pick. And easily the pick that sunk my team for this year. And Najee is just not a dude. He's better than a situational back, but for right now, for all intents and purposes, he's going to be about as good as his surrounding parts allow him to be.
Yeah. He certainly hasn't been a guy who has necessarily gotten more than what was around him. I think the kiss of death was when I read somebody tweeted out that, he's just Trent Richardson. That was the literal, that was the literal kiss of death to Najee's career. But let's be fair for a second. The offensive line is terrible. It was terrible last year. The volume was there, though. You make a great point, right? They added all these receivers, so they're dangerous on the outside. But the quarterback play has been subpar to this point. But up until last week, he had been playing with a steel plate in his foot in his shoe, every other game that he had played so far this year. So is that going to be the big change? I don't know. But this Liz Frank injury that started off the year is obviously an issue. We give credit to a guy like Marquise Brown. We forgive it. We know he has an injury. He got better because of it. But I think it's really difficult to sustain an injury this early in the year and then play a 17-game season behind an offensive line that's going to force you to just battle for every single thing that's in front of you. I wouldn't be surprised if he has a really subpar season, which we've already seen, and it persists. But I will say, people have said that Clyde Edwards has been average. I will debate that, but they have said he's been average to this point, Nick. But here we are in year, 3, and he's still the starter. Despite the fact that rocket ship Pacheco's behind him and all these other guys, he's still more or less the starter. Now, it's debatable in terms of snap share. Look, we don't have to go down that road. But I don't think Najee's.
You don't want to go down
I
that
don't.
road
We
if you're
don't
defending
need
Clyde.
to go
Yeah.
down that road. I'm not inviting you to go down that road. So, but I would be surprised to see him fade into the darkness. But again, this is a guy this year that's number 8 in stuffed runs already. Bad offensive line, quarterback plays shit. Teams hardly.
But it's like we knew all these things
right.
going into the year. Is the problem is like we tried to force a narrative that just was blatantly untrue, and I think it's like a really strong lesson to take away here. It's like I think we kind of knew who Najee was as a runner, and for the most part, we knew most of the variables around him, right? Like obviously we'll never be able to predict everything that's going on, but we could say like, hey, Mitch Trubisky's going to be his quarterback. He's going to get subpar quarterback play. Hey, their offensive line was horrible last year. Maybe they added like an average piece at guard or something, so they improved from like 29th to 26th or something like that. He's going to be running behind a subpar, whatever. He's got more competition in the passing game. Like there were a lot of variables that we knew that really limited his ceiling, which is why a player like this hurt so much if you draft him when you knew what you were really getting yourself into. A guy like Zach Wilson, who we talked about, so many fucking variables up for debate that you cannot possibly know what's going to happen with that situation. But Najee feels like a dude where it was a landmine that you probably could have avoided.
No, that's fair. I think Zach Wilson's more in control of his situation than Najee is. And Najee's going to be a product of a team that's trailing in a lot of games, or, a product of a player that's got, bad opportunity for the receivers around him. So you're right. I think from a redraft standpoint, I see why it was a lot more vivid. From a dynasty standpoint, you got a lot of owners that are underwater here, and they're getting scared. I mean, this guy's starting to fall outside the top 15. Like you mentioned, Jaylen Warren is starting to get the tape of love. Like people are like, fuck tape. And then they're like, look how good he looks on tape, just to spite the fact that Najee Harris maybe doesn't look as good. But I think you start to factor all these things in, and it makes sense why we're starting to see the slide for him. But another guy that was sliding like fucking crazy for weeks is Ja'Marr Chase. And suddenly breakout performance in week 6, and he's kind of back on everyone's radar. Now, while in Texas, while eating fantastic barbecue, Nick, great barbecue, by the way. Should really go if you haven't been. Barbecue, I can't say enough good things about it. Way too expensive.
I was in Austin in June or July for my friend's bachelor party. We ripped through some barbecue. It was, oh my goodness, life-changing type shit.
It's so good. I was just in Austin myself. It was a fantastic time. We missed each other, it sounds like. But
by a couple months, yeah.
By a couple, who's counting? But here was my issue. I made a statement on the video, did it in a cowboy hat. I basically said that my comp for Ja'Marr Chase, until he proves me wrong, is that he is essentially, from a performance standpoint, Tyreek Hill. How crazy is that to say? Is that seem out of line to say?
Are people taking that as disrespect, as Ja'Marr Chase is godly compared to Tyreek Hill?
I did a graph and I showed their up and down games. They're the same fucking player from last year to this year. They are the same guy with the same performance issues. Ja'Marr Chase, I'm assuming your take on him is you still think he's at minimum probably a top 2 receiver. I don't know how ballsy you are, but
in Dynasty?
Yeah, in Dynasty.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I'm not gonna move him down from a few bad games, but I do think it's realistic to reconsider his ceiling right now as a player. I think everybody got proven right. It was the low-hanging fruit. Ja'Marr Chase was awesome. He hit all the analytical measures. He checked every single box, so everybody can be like, hey, I love this guy. And then when he performs really well, you're like, I love him more than you did, so I have to have him as the wide receiver -40. You know what? It's
right.
Crazy shit. And then as soon as a guy comes back down to earth, it's you can't admit that you maybe were a little bit over aggressive on it. And we might be seeing that with Ja'Marr Chase. I think the other thing here is everybody likes T. Higgins, but I think we might be underselling just how fucking good T. Higgins is. T. Higgins, you listen to any NFL player talk about this dude, any analyst, any dude who's been around the game, and they're like, T. Higgins is a very clear alpha in any other fucking offense that he steps foot on the field for. And I remember a tweet that you put out about, I think last year, about the number of coinciding top 20 finishes these dudes had on weekly basis. And it makes so much sense because, to be honest with you, if you're watching a healthy T. Higgins this year, I don't really see a big difference between the two players in terms of how good they really are. So this might be a battle for alpha status for years to come. And that might clip the ceiling of maybe Jamar Chase is better than Tyreek Hill, but I don't know if we ever actually get to fucking see it because will T. Higgins allow it? You know?
Well, dude, I'm with you. Thank you. Thank you. Why weren't you here all the times that I was getting shelled for like trying to support T. Higgins?
I was in Texas eating barbecue. Brother.
Where you?
Sorry.
Fuck, missed you, man. I really wish we would have caught up. But here's my thing. Like, part of the Tyreek Hill analysis is that these two guys are really similar on a target share basis too. Tyreek was 26, 27%. Jamar Chase is 25, 26%. Look, guys, Jamar Chase doesn't need 32% target share to be a fucking monster in fantasy football. That dude can do it on 25%. But I think you're exactly right on the T. Higgins thing. He's a great player in any other offense. He's certainly considered the number one. And I got to be honest with you, history might play itself out to basically go, these guys are 1A, 1B. I think right now we look at them like 1 and 2. But T. Higgins has...
I don't anymore. After the beginning of this year, like watching them play and watching like how much Burrow loves Higgins, dude. Yeah. I don't even look at them as 1-2 anymore. Yeah. I look at them as a clear 1A, 1B. I don't even know who the A is, to be honest.
No, well, on any given week, it's one of the two guys. And, you know, through last year, I mean, you brought it up. It was a tweet about top 20 performances. And then I had another tweet about Jamar Chase that, and I think it's still to this day, he's had one back-to-back top 20 performance in his career.
Jesus Christ.
One.
That's really, really...
That was another
shocking
stat. And then I followed that stat up with saying that Jamar Chase has a poster of T. Higgins on his wall, and then everybody just lost their shit.
I love that. That's awesome. Yeah. I mean, that's very Tyreek Hill-esque, man. For a long time, it was like, when are we going to get consistency from Tyreek Hill? He'll have 40 points, and then 7 points, then 11 points, and then fucking 32 points.
Yep.
And if you look at Jamar Chase's game logs, you know, you get a lot of that, man. And that's what happens when you have a super talented player where there's a lot of variables around him in the offense, man. We're seeing a lot of mouths getting the ball out there in Cincinnati. We're seeing Joe Burrow play kind of on and off at times, and on the times that he's on, he might just be targeting T. Higgins. So it's like we're seeing a lot of things happening, and he's still playing behind like a shitty offensive line. So we haven't seen peak Burrow yet where both of them are popping at the same time. But as far as I'm concerned, the ceiling for Jamar Chase, maybe not as a player, but just for fantasy, is a tiny bit concerning relative to the value of Higgins and Chase.
Yeah. No, I'm with you. And I think what's going to happen is, this was my argument. I did a video not too long ago. My whole thing was, any value that Jamar Chase lost is a great thing because we know he's a game breaker. I mean, there's only 3 guys at the position probably that can do that on any given week. But when T. Higgins fell out of the dynasty top 5 for some people, and he trended all the way to the number 12 or 13, I saw him as low as 15 at one point. It's like, how fucking low is that? Like, that guy can, on any given week, is a top 5 type dynasty wide receiver. So for me, he's the value of the two players, right? And we've yet to kind of see him with a Jamar Chase injury. We've seen Jamar Chase with a T. Higgins injury, but God forbid, for the sake of Jamar Chase, that when he does get hurt, T. Higgins has like 25-point games consecutively, because the whole fucking conversation's going to start, about, well, who really needs who? And to your point, I think they're both a benefit for each other, depending on how a defense decides to play them, right? Like, if they want to double Chase, well, you're going to get beaten by Higgins. If you try to go straight up on these guys, Chase is eventually going to kill you. And I think we've seen that happen time and time again.
If we're looking at both these guys, it's like, yeah, maybe both of their value somehow dips. Like, okay, if we're buying someone, it's because it's T. Higgins on the fact that his value is just so much further down than Chase is. Like, you're not really buying Jamar Chase on the low. Like, I can't stand those type of tweets. Like, buy him on the low. Like, what the fuck do you mean buy him on the low? Like, you still got to pay 7 first rounds to get Jamar Chase. It's just a price that's unfathomable, but T. Higgins is still not looked at as that guy. So he's still attainable until we see the non-Jamar Chase type games. And we're like, oh, wait, maybe Higgins is as good as Chase.
100%, man. No, I'm with you. I think T remains the guy. And to that tall guy, his question, and you kind of alluded to it, could some of this inconsistency be due to the trash line that the Bengals are saying? I would say definitely yes, for the sake of Joe Burrow, but also we've watched, and I brought this up before, when Justin Jefferson ran into a problem, they moved him into the slot, and his slot rate went up like 25% over his average. When Jamar Chase was having trouble, they just kept running him outside, right? We saw no change. There was no deviation to how they played him. So I think it's a play style and maybe capabilities and offensive, scheming. But for that matter, we've now seen for essentially a year and a half that Jamar Chase will continue to kind of be this guy. So I'm with you on the buy T. Higgins side of this. I'm going to jump ahead here. Let's talk about Elijah Moore for a minute, because Elijah Moore recently came out on social media, and I had a tweet, I don't remember, it's to the effect of, if Elijah Moore doesn't know why he's not being targeted, your favorite fantasy analyst has no fucking idea why he's not being targeted. So, dude, people were just saying, oh, it's a product of the offense and this, and this. It's like, it's egregious to have 0 targets for this guy on any given week. So they draft Garrett Wilson. We've talked about Zach Wilson a little bit. How concerned are you about Elijah Moore?
Concerned because of what we talked about earlier. And Zach Wilson, man, it's like you're not even depending on just Elijah Moore. It's okay to draft one fucking player and be like, I hope he hits. I hope he turns out to be a good player in the NFL. Like, we know what Elijah Moore is, but now you got to depend on another player. So you're basically like drafting a player and hoping 2 people hit in one right now. And Zach Wilson has given us like no opportunity to get excited about Elijah Moore, you know? So it's like, now they draft Garrett Wilson. Now they're a run-heavy offense. Now Elijah Moore is not getting any targets here, and it's definitely concerning. He's not someone I'm trying to push away because we know that he's already like we know he's a dog, right? And we know he'll have his games over the year. And hopefully he just keeps complaining because I think that will hopefully lead to some more forced balls his way. Yeah. But yeah, dude, it's like nearly impossible to understand what's going on here when you have Corey Davis out here just balling on Garrett Wilson and Elijah Moore. There's just not a lot of sense being made out there in New York.
Well, it's weird. And even with the Joe Flacco Nitro Booster games, we're only seeing a 13.6% target share for Elijah Moore on the year. And it's weird because I was looking at it. So his route participation this year is high. His ADOT is top 15. His rate of intermediate targets is up 17% from last year. You know, he's top 35 in target separation. It's like Russell Wilson in a way. It's like he's doing all the right stuff, but just the output score is not relative to what we expected. And it's just like you said, it's like featuring a running back, you know, the lack of volume from a passer, Garrett Wilson, fucking Corey Davis still living and breathing in this offense. It makes me concerned. And I seriously want to ask this question, like, what is stopping people from ranking a guy like Brandon Ayuk over a guy like Elijah Moore? Like, is that a question right now?
In Dynasty?
Yeah, in Dynasty.
I think people will always hold on to the younger, more crystallized, like the person who, if you can be proven right, again, and Elijah Moore was one of those guys who checked every box so people feel so much more comfortable with them, because if they're wrong on him, they could always turn back and be like, everybody was wrong on him, though. Yep. Look, his profile was perfect. Like, how could we have been wrong on him? Where Ayuk, you're going out a little bit more onto a branch, right? You're going out a little bit more onto your own because he was a little bit more of a polarizing prospect where he didn't have the breakout age and all this shit. So I think that is one of the things that people like really hold their hat on, because you don't have anyone coming off the rookie year saying, I don't like Elijah Moore. I don't think he's going to be good. I don't think he's a good dynasty asset. I don't think he's going to have a breakout year, right? Nobody was saying that. So it gives people comfort in the dynasty world to hold on to a player like that, because for whatever reason, man, that's just like really how, I guess, like the human psychology works. So when you look at just pure production, I mean, there's also a lot of up in the airness as it pertains to the 49ers, right? Like Ayuk is coming off this 2-touchdown game, but before that, he wasn't necessarily consistent. I would almost say the passing offense over there in the 49ers situation is like a rich man's version of the Jets, where you have a lot of talented players. You have no idea what you're going to get as an output on a week-to-week basis. You have a really strong run game now that you know the running backs are going to produce in, but any given week, the quarterback might throw for 190 yards split between 5 fucking players, which is absolutely nothing. He'll get lucky every once in a while, throw 2 touchdowns. It goes to the same fucking player. So when you look at the two players together side by side, it's like Moore's more athletic, he's younger, he checks all the boxes from a dynasty prospect that people like to see, and I think that's why you hold on, or that's why most people hold on to a dude like that.
No, it makes sense. They're all fair arguments. I think that what we're seeing in San Francisco is, despite the fact that it's still not a high volume passing offense, all the numbers are just more favorable for a guy like Ayuk, who was great after the catch, who proved it as a rookie. I mean, the thing is, talent for talent, it's undeniable that Brandon Ayuk is a great player. Like, if Deebo Samuel wasn't there, again, the argument that we're making against Ayuk, once Garrett Wilson really like entrenches himself as the guy, we're going to have the same conversation about Elijah Moore. Like, I love Elijah Moore, but they drafted Garrett Wilson to be that alpha lead receiver. And so I think we're going to continue to sort of see similar problems. But to your point, this is an ascending offense. He's younger.
Maybe though. I wonder if we see that, because I still think there will be a lot of people that are hesitant to say Garrett Wilson is an alpha because he's not built like one per se, or at least give more leeway to the idea that Moore can be like the Higgins to the Chase. Whereas right now, like, you look at the Niners offense. I mean, the Niners are a weird situation, I guess, to compare, because like Debo's not a normal one. But like, no one in their right mind looks at that offense and says, like, you know, I'm starting a fantasy team today, I want Ayuk over Debo. It's like, it's just not happening. But if you look at the offense today, it's not crazy to say, like, I want Moore over Wilson. Wilson's still unproven. He's not like this 6'2" thoroughbred stud. He's wildly talented, and if I were to start a fantasy team today, I'd rather have Wilson over Moore. But I'm just saying, like, I think it's much more easy to rationalize it because Wilson doesn't really give off that demeanor. He hasn't broken out yet. So you look at Moore and you're like, there's still hope that he could actually still be the one, because we've already seen him produce on a football field.
Yeah. Look, I'm with you. Look, I'm just throwing a bobber out in the water. You got it. I'm just throwing a line out in the water. I'm just curious, like, where you are on him. But yeah,
I'm trying to get into the mental minds of dynasty players here. I'm trying to have a therapy session. You know what I mean? Because there's a lot of people out there that are fucked in the head. I need you to understand why you're behaving the way that you are. All right. So go buy Elijah Moore, go buy T. Higgins. And now that you have no money left, you're going to starve for the rest of the week.
It's good. Okay. Speaking of starving, how about this? Treylon Burks.
That picture, he don't look like he's starving, bro.
No, he looks thick in this picture. Treylon Burks is one of these guys where, and I've made this analogy before. I've brought this up, and Cody, him and I talked about this in real time when we were in Las Vegas together, but I'm going to bring it up again. If Treylon Burks compares best to A.J. Brown, and A.J. Brown couldn't thrive in these exact same conditions, then what is the ceiling for Treylon Burks?
Dude, that was like the biggest fucking red flag ever coming into this year. Like, after they drafted him, is people are expecting him to be A.J. Brown, and A.J. Brown hit the ceiling of what he could do in that offense. It's like everything had to break so perfectly right for A.J. Brown, or for Treylon Burks, in order for him to be like what the Titans did. To move away from A.J. Brown just to draft Treylon Burks was crazy. So Burks is a perfect example of, when you're in a rookie draft, it's not necessarily like falling in love with players and being like, I just love this guy or I hate this guy, but it's like understanding a range of outcomes and understanding a spectrum for certain players. Whereas like this year, it felt like in super flex drafts, there was a very clear top 6 dudes, right? It was like in no particular order, but it was like Kenny Pickett, Breece Hall, Kenneth Walker, and then Garrett Wilson, Drake London, and Treylon Burks was usually in there for most people.
Yeah.
And you can argue like Olave, whatever, but for the most part, I think that was a tier of 6 guys a lot of the time. And for me, it was like very, very evident by the end of the draft process that Burks felt like the clear 6 for me. He wasn't someone that I was going to be like upset having on my dynasty team. But when you start to like run percentages in your head of like, what are the hit rates of these guys, right? Like maybe this, Garrett Wilson hitting is like 67%. Burks is down here at like 42%. And that's kind of like how my rankings start to like accumulate in my head. And the more that the summer went on, like the negative reports started to accumulate, and you start to listen to more people in the industry, like even like Matt Harmon's like reception perception came out about Treylon Burks, and it was awful. It was littered with a lot of red flags, and you're like, listen, you watch Burks and he makes plays that only really good football players can actually make. So you want to believe that on the high end of the spectrum, yes, he could be awesome, but you've also got to acknowledge the fact that the chance that he hits is probably lower than these other dudes who are more refined, who have more production, who have done it for a longer period of time consistently. And I think he's like of course he didn't bust yet. He's hurt right now, and he could still live up to like a good player and be a dude who goes for 1,000 yards each season and maybe have a higher ceiling. But I think he was a perfect example of like why you should be cautious as the draft process goes along, and then like adjust your ranks evenly and like slowly, and not be like dramatic and be like, Burks was easily my least favorite of those top 6 guys, but I would easily have taken him at 106, 107 if he fell to me.
Dude, I'm gonna go fast all the time. When I play like race car games, I hit all 3 nitro boosts as soon as it starts. I just burn them up right away.
You need to relax.
I do.
Relax.
No, I'm with you. I think it's the right way to look at it. My concern. So with Treylon Burks, he was a guy that in college actually ran a lot of slot. I think it was 77% of his collegiate snaps came out of the slot, which, to be honest with you, I actually think is a great thing in the NFL today. We've seen immense success out of a lot of different players, from Elijah Moore to A.J. Brown to Justin Jefferson, all these guys, even Amon-Ra St. Brown. But these guys that can play more inside out, St. Brown is not so much that case. These guys have been very successful at the NFL level because teams can use them inside and out, and that diversity and that skill set exists. The thing with Burks for me was he was either beating you deep in college or he was being used in short area. And my problem is you look at a guy like Tannehill, and I think he was drafted as either the bridge between Tannehill and, I saw somebody said wait for Willis. God forbid Willis, by the way. I've got hot lava takes for Willis. I'm not a fan. He's got all the tools. Again, everybody wants to compare him to Josh Allen. Stop. We're picking an outlier, okay? There's other people.
Malik, wait, there people are, what?
I had people in my mentions that I saw on Twitter too that were calling him generational. They had data sets that had him as a prospect as good as Lamar. That is called fitting your data. That's what the term is. It's called fitting your fucking data. But anyways, my concern is that Tannehill has not been inside the top 24 in deep ball pass attempts in the last 5 years. This is a throttled offense, but he needed guys after the catch in short areas. So I'm not looking forward to Malik Willis at all. But I think anytime a wide receiver misses games like this, man, like that is a bad direction ahead in your career.
Yeah, it's a horrible direction ahead. And like the situation he's in does him no favors right now. So again, I just think like the range of outcomes for him is, for it to be AJ Brown-esque, is so fucking slim. And you start to have to play and act with your fantasy team accordingly. Like everybody, I feel like the way they maneuver is if like is either going to hit his ceiling or he's going to hit his floor. Most players don't hit either. Most players fall in the middle of that, and then your team is left in mediocrity, man. And the earlier you can figure that shit out, the better off you're going to be.
I agree. Oh, Cody, stop the Willis hate, bro. You were talking about Zach Wilson 20 minutes ago. There's nothing I can say for Malik Willis. Like I understand the allure. Go trade for him if you want that upside, because I don't know how long.
Put your money where your mouth is, Cody.
Yeah, do it, Cody. Go roster him in a league.
Send offers, coward.
Send him out. All right, here's one for you. So again, in terms of being fearful and watching guys sort of fall off the map, Justin Fields is a player that clearly the organization has not been behind. They haven't drafted the right players. They drafted him early, but they haven't done shit to help him out. How concerned? I mean, when we talk about panicking too soon, can you panic too soon? I love the tools, but man, this doesn't look good.
I'm still okay with Field. This felt like another. This was like the quarterback version of Najee Harris, but to a much worse degree. Like people were talking about, the upside all offseason. It's like, yo, what upside are you making up right now? Because this team had arguably the single worst setup maybe a quarterback in history can go into beginning a year. You have the new coach. You have one of, if not the worst offensive line. You're like, okay, bad offensive line, horrendous weapons. The offseason starts. It's like, okay, let's get him some weapons. It's like, nope. It's like, okay, the resources that we didn't spend on weapons, let's get it in protection. It's like, nope, we're not going to fucking do that either. So this guy walks into a situation where he, in no scenario could he have succeeded here. So I went into the season expecting him to struggle as horribly as he's struggling right now. I am more confident that Fields will walk out of this okay than I probably am Zach Wilson at this point. I think on a pound for pound, quarterback for quarterback level, they're both wildly concerning, of course, but I'd rather have Fields. I think he's shown enough through both his legs and through his arm, which haven't been great either. But this guy, I think you got to cut him a little bit of slack. My only concern is owning a dude like this in Dynasty, the rebuild for the Bears is going to take a while, and it'll probably take a fucking toll on his brain a little bit. So before Fields can show you whether or not he's actually a good player, it might be 2 more years. And that's the tough part about a dude like him. So I'm not necessarily trying to get out from underneath him because I do think he has upside when he's in the right situation. But yeah, I mean, it's just to expect anything other than what's happening right now would have been crazy.
Look, I'm not saying what you're saying is incorrect at all, because when I look at these players and I look at their talent profiles and skill sets, to me, Fields is still definitely one of the most talented of this entire group from a, an arm talent standpoint, collegiate production, rushing ability. But it's like his line is bad, his receivers are bad. His team failed him in the NFL draft. This is a Chicago team that can't get Fields time to throw, but they're currently trailing on 66% of their plays. But the best part is, even though they're losing, they're not throwing. They're still not throwing the ball while they're losing, because, in fact, despite Tua missing 2 games, Fields and Tua are tied for pass attempts on the season. So it's a fucking brutal existence, because what? They draft a 25-year-old receiver and add N'Keal Harry through a trade, and they're like, that'll do. That'll patch it. That's going to patch the holes. So I'm concerned for the reason that you stated. I think the rebuild is going to take a while, and I think that fantasy production is going to be variable, and I just hope that he can sustain the damage that he's going to receive through a bad O-line and being forced to make just plays up on the fly.
Yeah, I mean, like, it's hard to understand the inner workings of the football team, and that's a tough part. It's like he's throwing the ball 15, 18 times a game, and it's like, do they just completely not trust him? Do they understand that their team is fucking terrible? And if they let him drop back there, he won't make it out of the season if he drops back 35 to 40 times a game, right? Like, that offensive line will not allow him to stay. He's going to take 8 hits a game, and he'll break a fucking leg, fracture some ribs, break a collarbone or something. And there's part of me that says, like, okay, maybe the Chicago front office understands what they're working with, and they don't want that to happen. They trust their run. I mean, I don't want to say trust their running backs, but like, it's tough to decipher what's going on. Like, clearly there's a little bit of like non-trust factor going on with the quarterback, but there also has to be a reality check to the point where it's like, Justin Fields is one man. We have N'Keal fucking Harry running routes out there for him. Like, are we really going to expect him to drop back 35 times a game and win us these football games? Like, I don't know if there's a quarterback in the NFL that could really win 7 games with this roster. Like, you put Patrick Mahomes out there, it's like, I don't know if he's getting that done. So to expect that with Justin Fields is, maybe that's dramatic, because like the Bears actually might win like 6 or 7 games this year, but you get what I'm saying here. It's just, There's nothing to work with, man. So it's hard to understand where the coaches are looking at this thing from. Is it a lack of trust in Fields, or is it just like acknowledging the situation that every single other fucking person can see that they're in and trying not to make the worst of it?
It's really difficult, man. You follow it back to last season. You look at this season. You go through the draft process. It feels like they didn't do anything. We felt like they were going to add like this superstar free agent. They didn't really do anything.
That's like the more concerning part, actually, is that it's like, you'd think if they felt that they had the guy under center, it's like, okay, let's see. We know this rebuild's going to take a minute. Let's start to like develop the pieces for him. Let's draft a wide receiver here. Let's draft 2 linemen here. Do the same thing the next year. And, by year 3, there you go. You got 3 solid wideouts for him. You got 5 fucking real starters. They didn't even start to put the cinder blocks down, man. And that is the most concerning part, I think.
Yeah. Cody apparently agrees with you. He's made amends. He feels bad for his earlier comments, and he's come back to say that it's a pissy situation, and he agrees. I want to say, by the way, before I go on to the next player, to the guy that downvoted the live stream, how dare you? How dare you come in here and downvote the live stream? So everybody who hasn't upvoted, upvote the live stream. Let's give it a thumbs up. All right, let's go to another player. This is a guy that's super interesting, Kyle Pitts. Now, he's come up on this show in the past. This is a guy that everybody was saying, take him in the 101 in your rookie drafts, even non-tight end premium. He's going to be unstoppable. Take this guy. And since then, Nick, it has been disgusting. But people that understand how the tight end position works knew better.
Yeah, I mean, listen, as a Falcons fan, I wish I had some crazy insight onto what's happening here. I think there are a few things at play. I think, one, Drake London is that fucking dude. First of all, I think there's a real chance he came in here and he's like, I'm the alpha in this offense. Like, Kyle Pitts, listen, I get that you're athletic and I get that you're playing tight end. Don't get it twisted, though. I'm fucking Drake London. So with the Falcons offense, man, I think there's a chance that he's the dude there over Kyle Pitts, which is obviously going to throttle him a little bit. I also feel like people need to understand that although his rookie year was awesome and he went over 1,000 yards, he did it in 3 games. He had 3 big games. He had 3 good games, 3 double-digit fantasy point games in half PPR against 3 of the worst defenses in the league. I think it was like the Jets, the Lions, and maybe the Jaguars or some shit like that. it was impressive on the surface, but it really wasn't that impressive. He put no consistency together. And again, it was a situation going into this year where a lot of the variables felt predictable, where it's like it's Marcus Mariota leading the charge. He's not throwing the ball 35 times a game. No one thought it was going to get as bad as it is right now. But with Pitts, you got to understand this dude just turned 22. Like, this will take a little bit more time, I think, for him to develop. If you drafted him in a redraft, you're just eating shit right now. Like, that's the only thing you can do. I think there are a lot of viable players that you could start over him. I think you're starting Pat Fryermuth over him right now on a weekly, but you're starting those guys over him, and you just have a fucking reality check with yourself. You got to stop putting this guy in for this hypothetical upside that a 14 pass attempt offense just does not lend to your tight end. In Dynasty, yeah, again, it's like you're biting the bullet, but like, you also drafted him young, probably not thinking that he was going to be a league winner for you outside of some psychotic fucking people on Twitter over the summer. You just sit with it, man. You've got a guy who's going to be really, really good, but it's going to take a little bit more time. We got overexcited from a sample size that probably wasn't that reliable to begin with.
Well, that sample size started in college, and then it made its way to the NFL, and then people bought in hook, line, and sinker. I'm with you. My thing is, look, it goes for almost every tight end through history, with the exception, I brought this up, 2011 Patriots, Gronk and Hernandez were 22 each and went off, right? But it's rare. Most of these guys don't fire till 24, 25. It's why guys like Noah Fant, TJ Hawkinson, and Goddard, we're still not treating any of those dudes like they're this elite talent, even though at one point in time, you're like, oh man, this is the dude. This is the guy in the draft class. And it just every single time sort of fails to manifest itself. And you're exactly right. When you look at the mega production that kind of bumped all those numbers up quite a ways, but his target share, his opportunity was really high. And here we go. It's sort of that inverse of KC maybe today, where you got a guy like Kelsey who's eating up all the opportunity and the receivers are kind of struggling, where, now you've got Drake London, you've got this elite tight end who
Travis Kelce and his brother, Jason Kelce, started a podcast. I don't know if you've seen any clips from it, but it's on TikTok sometimes, and all over Instagram Reels and shit. And Travis was talking about how the tight end position, he feels super fortunate. He's obviously an awesome player. He'll go down as one of the best of all time. But on a surface level, when you look at Kelce, he's not that much more dominant or athletic than maybe the top 5, top 7 tight ends in the league. He said on the podcast, he's realistically, tight end production is almost always a product of the system that you're in. He's no one is better at getting me production than Andy Reid. If I was in a system or an offense where some of these dudes who struggle to find production were in, I'd probably be putting up the same numbers they are, right? And that's just a raw fucking thing for him to say. And it's something that I think more people probably need to realize, because that is a position that will ebb and flow in offenses, right? So you look at the wide receiver position, no matter what fucking offense you're in, you're going out wide, you're running a route, and if you get open, you're getting the ball. The running back position, that could be, system approach, obviously, depending if you're running routes or whatever, but the tight end is very, very much going to fluctuate on what kind of offensive system that you're in, right? Tight ends might block more if they're in one system. They might stay in line more. They might go out wide more. They might fucking take carries. They might be on the bench more because they want to go 4 wideouts and 1 running back. So I do think what he's saying, obviously it's fucking Travis Kelce, so it has merit to it, but I think it maybe needs to take a little bit more consideration, and we need to maybe look forward at the systems that players are playing in at the tight end position to understand what the opportunity is going to be like.
Yeah. No, and I know that part of the issue, at least for me, when you look at guys like Andrews, you look at Kelce, I think up until last week, Kelce and Andrews both didn't have any pass blocking downs on the year. At that point, Kyle Pitts was, I think, at 14% or 12% of his plays on the field were pass blocking.
That's crazy.
Which was interesting, but we've watched it trend down to the point where last week was 0. The week before that was about 7%, 9%. So it is coming down. It's starting to normalize, but I think we can agree that Mariota's not the answer in Atlanta. And whatever's happening today, I think Drake London continues to be that guy in the offense, like you said, and garner that immense target share, which he has gotten. But it's really hard to say what tendencies take place with the next quarterback. We don't know if it's Ritter, if it's somebody else. I have no idea. I would assume that it's probably Ritter if it's not Mariota beyond this point. But Kyle Pitts is a guy that investing in him today is difficult because we knew this was going to take a while. And the people that are upset about it probably didn't do enough research into the situation last year, or tight ends in general. They just don't fire the way that I think people expect. And it doesn't mean he can't still be one of the best tight ends of all time, but I would be absolutely shocked if we saw it start anytime this year, and probably not until there's some stability. Because here's the thing. We're going to change quarterbacks soon, right? And it's going to start all over again. Rapport, chemistry, all this stuff. So in Dynasty, is he a guy that you want to roster just to wait on him? Or are you just kind of hands off at this point?
I mean, if you have him on, he's one of those dudes that I don't think there's much you could do, right? It's like the only time you can acquire a dude like Kyle Pitts is pretty much in your startup draft or your rookie draft or whatever. So if you got him there, you're holding on to, the career that he's going to have. I think that's a dude you just invest into basically, for life. If you didn't get him, it's going to cost so much to fucking acquire him at this point that I think you're just sitting on your hands with Pitts and just hoping that he's the tight end of the future for you, man. I think we've seen enough good to know that the good is coming eventually. I think we've seen enough bad recently to know that it might take a minute,
Yeah. My mom used to make me sit on my hands when I was a kid. Did you ever get in trouble and have to sit on your hands?
No, my mom used to make me eat soap though.
Oh, okay. Okay. I never got the bar of soap. I always got threatened with it. Thank God. That seems worse than sitting on your hands. Maybe my family.
Yeah, I'm
was
wondering what the correlation between kids who ate soap and drafting Kyle Pitts in stardom drafts was.
Bang. Nailed it. All right, let's go to one of the last guys I want to talk about here. Rashad Bateman, man. I think that there is a sneaky amount of concern here. Now, there's a lot of people out there that are going to tell you, no, Rashad Bateman's the guy. He's the wide receiver one. Like, he can still be a wide receiver one at the NFL level. I feel differently, Nick. Like, I would love to hear your take on him. I think there's a lot of reasons to show concern for Bateman's ceiling. And I think we've actually seen a lot of it already at the NFL level.
Why don't you start this off? Tell me what your concerns about Bateman are. At least, like, I think like a rookie year, for the most part, of course, he was injured, and I'd like to say you could probably wipe most of his rookie year clean. But like, what are your concerns with him?
So, okay, for me, it's like even while healthy, and now post Marquise Brown, Bateman's snap share has never even crossed 68% on the year, right? And now he's racked up 7 missed games in 2 seasons, and on top of a lack of health and a lack of snaps, he's also averaged just 5.5 targets per game over the last 2 seasons. And for the added kick in the nuts, Nick, let me bring this tweet up from the other day. Let's bring this thing right up on the screen. Oh, it's a tweet from me. In the regular season since 2018, here is every 10-plus target game to a wide receiver with Lamar Jackson as the only quarterback. Lamar Jackson has 7 games in his entire career where he has targeted a receiver more than 10 times, and none of them, absolutely none of them, have been our guy, Rashad Bateman. So here's my concern. He's not healthy. He's not getting the snap share. He's rarely targeted. Mark Andrews is the guy in this offense. Lamar Jackson's still averaging 9.3 rush attempts per game. And there's an outlier chance that they decide to draft a guy next season to supplement the issues that they're having. And I just can't get past the fact that what people say to me, the counter to this is, well, at some point, Lamar Jackson has to stop running as much. He has to stand in the pocket and throw. And it's like, dude, go back in time. He's never done that. Like, if you're predicting, you're trying to time a train that you have no fucking idea what its schedule is. That's where I'm at on Rashad Bateman.
Okay, that's fair. Yeah, I wanted you to go first because Bateman's been a dude that I have really, really loved him coming out of college, and I'm still a believer in him, but he's not someone that I'm like not open to changing my mind about. And I think we've seen some good. I think we've seen some bad from him. A lot of me, when he was coming out, a lot of me felt like he was a version of Keenan Allen, where he didn't do a lot of things that were flashy, but he did a lot of things really well. I think he was a good separator. I think he could run the long route. I think he could run the medium route, the short route. And I think back on Keenan Allen's early years, and he was that like injury-prone player that we felt was really good, but like could never really piece his life together, right? Whether it was an injury here or this going on over there. And I get the same vibes from Rashad Bateman. Problem is, again, like being attached to this Baltimore offense is tough.
Yep.
And that's the reality of the situation. You could say like things are going to change, but Lamar is who Lamar is, and he's great because of who he is, and I don't think a dude like Rashad Bateman's going to change that. This felt like the reason I loved Rashad Bateman going into this year too. It felt like one of those like perfect storm situations where he had no choice but to see 140 targets because there was no one else to fucking throw. Like they're using Devin Duvernay, who is a slot, he was a fucking return guy. He's a return player, right? Yep. He's not a wide receiver as their one when Bateman's out, which should tell you how many targets Bateman should be getting. And the fact that he's not getting those targets should be concerning. And I do believe what you said in the fact that like, there's a really good chance they look at a receiver early because one, there are some teams that don't do that, right? You look at the Packers, you look at these teams that do not draft wide receivers early. The Ravens have been the opposite of that. They do draft wide receivers early, right? They drafted Bateman in the first round. They drafted Hollywood in the first round. They're not afraid to pull the trigger on early pass catchers, especially just offensive players in general. I mean, look at most of the pieces they have on their offense. They're early picks. Mark Andrews, when it was Hayden Hurst in that same year, Lamar Jackson, obviously first round pick, but like all of these skill players, Dobbins, second round pick, they like investing early round capital in their offense. So don't be surprised when they use a first or a second, or if they're going to reinvest on Lamar Jackson, if they're going to say, okay, we're finally giving you the bag for 5 more years, let's continue to build around you. Don't be surprised when it is a second round wide receiver coming back onto this offense. What does that mean for Bateman? So for Bateman, the reality might be setting in that he just could be a really good player for an offense. He might not be a really good fantasy player for your team. I'm still in on him. I still really like him. I still think there's upside for him to be the one in this offense. But again, it goes back to almost what I was saying with Treylon Burks. It's like you start to look at the percentages and you start to like skew your spectrum towards what this guy is likely going to be, and then you play your cards according to that. It's not a black or white. It's not like bust for Rashad Bateman, ceiling for Rashad Bateman. But as we get more refined with every like data piece we get, every game that he plays or doesn't play, you start to understand like who he actually is as a player. And, there's a very good chance he ends up being the guy that you just basically described for us.
Look, I don't want to be the Grim Reaper, but I will be the Grim Reaper. I mean, my concern too is it's like when you have such low volume of passing opportunity and then a guy like Mark Andrews is sucking up 34.3% of it, that's dangerous. I mean, this isn't KC where we know Mahomes is going to throw the ball a ton. Like this is low volume. This is run first. This is Lamar Jackson eating up opportunities. So
the other part of that perfect storm was like, while Bateman set up to be the one, they didn't have any running backs to give the ball to either. So if there was going to be another follow-up year with big pass attempt year for Lamar Jackson, it was this because Dobbins wasn't healthy. Gus wasn't healthy. They didn't have players to give the fucking ball to. So it was like Bateman better come out the gate with 10 targets a game, or this might be the only chance he gets to see that, and it didn't fucking happen.
Well, and he didn't even come out with route opportunity. Like there just was nothing there. Like the snaps didn't even exist. It's like I don't know what they're doing. Either there's an undisclosed injury, because here's what leads me to believe. If you were going to let Marquise Brown go and he was your guy, then you were necessarily setting up Rashad Bateman to be the guy, right? That's part of your perfect storm. It was like, okay, clearly this guy's talented. They know he's talented. He can do everything. But it's the offense itself. Like, if right now, if the Chargers traded Rashad Bateman straight up for Keenan Allen, like I would all day say Bateman is a top 12 type receiver in the league. Like I would almost guarantee it if he could stay healthy. But the health concerns, the future concerns, I mean, again, you kind of reiterated it. If Baltimore decides to go to skill position again and they take a receiver, probably a day 2 guy, I would imagine. They probably don't invest in round 1. Unless Bateman misses 6 more games this year, they probably don't go to the well on a round 1 guy. But day 2 guy, second round guy, third round guy, all of a sudden shaking things up, can definitely be concerning. So I love Bateman. I think the talent's there. I think the upside will continue to be there because he's sort of that home run threat. But damn, Lamar is just not. He does not pass the ball enough to these wide receivers, man.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I'm looking at the numbers. He's around like 75% in terms of like the route rate. And then that last game that he had where he's down at like 50, 55, 60, whatever it was, that was, when he was hurt, he came out with the walking boot. So I'm not like as concerned with the play time. I think this is kind of like a funky offense that probably just like get guys on and off the field because they run so much, and have Lamar running a lot of weird, scrambles or whatever. So the play time is not as big of a concern as it is just, you said, like the overall offense, man. It's just a scheme that does not lend itself to having big upside plays. And like Hollywood obviously did that, but that was like his specialty. He wasn't really like a possession guy where you count on him to go 8 for 80 and a touchdown. It'd be like 6 for 140 and a touchdown. But that's Hollywood, man. That's like one player that can fit into a square hole.
Yeah, this is a good question. Let's ask this one question to you right here. That tall guy, if Bateman bounces back, is he a sell high at the end of the season?
Ooh,
well, guy, here's a question for you. The dynasty brain, does the dynasty brain then go, oh shit, the hit is coming? Or does the dynasty brain go, this is a false flag?
For me, I typically would like to ride that wave. Like if I see a player be good, I'm someone who I don't always get excited about like projected future value. I kind of like to say like, okay, Rashad Bateman just showed me that he's a good fantasy player. The way you build a good fantasy team is by having a lot of good fantasy players on your fucking team. So he's a dude I would hold on to. I don't typically gamble in trades and dynasty just for the sake of doing it. Like that's what I feel like you'd be doing with Bateman. If you want to gamble, like basically if you're moving him or you're trading him away, if he has a really strong second half of the year, you're doing it and saying like, I'm gambling that they draft a first or second round wide receiver. And there's just like nothing concretely that would tell you that. Like, yes, we just discussed it for a while, but we're like two dudes on a fucking YouTube show just kind of like talking about it. It's a gamble. That's literally what you're doing. And I would rather stay on the side of what I've seen already, right? And we're talking about if we've seen the Bateman breakout, I know he's a good player. Therefore, it kind of showed me what I had already believed. So I'm going to believe what I had seen, and that's kind of the way I look at it. It's like, show me the concrete proof of what I've already seen, and I'm good laying in there.
Yeah. And he's young enough, and he's got the contract, and there's a lot of stuff in his favor. There's time for sure for Rashad Bateman. I think he's going to hold value. All right, man. I want to pick your brain on a dynasty trade, and then I'm going to get you to the $500 questions because I do think that you're going to be the first guy to ever win this thing. So no, I really think there's a great chance.
I'm really bad at like on them, whatever. We'll get to it.
Yeah, it's good.
You'll just see how bad I am.
I hate losing money, so that's good. All right, here we go. As a New York guy, got to respect it. All right, man, so let's look at the first of two dynasty trades that I've got for you here. I want to pick your brain on these. Let's bring the first one on the screen. This is an interesting one. We got Saquon Barkley, Matt Stafford, a 2024 second, a 2023 first for the stack in Joe Burrow and T. Higgins. So as you can see at the bottom of the screen, we got the Saquon's package or we got the Bengals stack. Which one do you prefer in Dynasty?
So originally when I looked at this, I think Dynasty trades to look at are so easy to get like overwhelmed by that I almost feel like you kind of got to tell yourself the story of what the trade is while you're analyzing it. So when you're looking at the two sides, for me, this is a very clear dichotomy between the two. You have two players whose value is at peak and is on the decline, right? That's probably Stafford, and we know for sure Stafford's is on the decline. Saquon, I don't know how long he's going to be at this peak, but we know on the flip side for sure, Burrow and Higgins are locked in for value put where they are now and probably wildly increasing for the next 5, 7, 8 years. Those are types of players that I want on my fantasy team because they're also not just like projected value. They're also really good players right fucking now. And if you've been listening to the show up to this point, we talked for a while about T. Higgins. Give me that Burrow and Higgins stack all day. It's cute, the first and the second thrown on in the future. Again, I'm not someone who gets like attracted by those like flashy first. Listen, value don't win you fucking fantasy football championships. Good players in your fantasy lineups win you fantasy championships. And Burrow and Higgins give you 2 of your 9 starting roster spots for the next 6 years that you never got to fucking worry about again. Give me that side of that trade all day.
Bro, if I could cry, I would. If I could force a tear, I would do it. I would love it. I'm on board with you, man. All right, let's look at the second trade then. This is an interesting one. Kenneth Walker and Alec Pierce or CeeDee Lamb.
Where are you at with CeeDee Lamb right now?
I still think CeeDee Lamb's the top 5 dynasty wide receiver.
Okay.
I'm on board.
This feels like a boomer take because I don't have a ton of numbers really to back it up. But while I think he's wildly talented, I feel like I haven't seen that like real dog in him. Like when you're gonna put him in the conversation with like Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase in the top 5 guys, I look at those dudes and I'm like, yo, there's no debating whether or not they belong there. With Lamb, it still feels like there's a lot left up in the air. So that's what makes me hesitant on that side of the trade. That being said, though, Walker's been really fun to watch the last couple of weeks. I don't know if there's enough on that side of the trade for me to want to let go of CeeDee Lamb there. So I'll probably take CeeDee Lamb. I would like to chalk up him not having that like alpha breakout because he's just so fucking young and Dak's been hurt for a majority of his fucking career so far. So it's like there are a lot of moving parts that are working against him there. I'll take the CD side there, but I will say like I'm not as bought in on CD as you seem to be.
Yeah, I mean, no, I'm with you. I think that that's the right side of the trade that I would like to be on. Again, we're seeing CeeDee Lamb do this without Dak Prescott. This was supposed to be the year, much like we said, we teed up Rashad Bateman. This was supposed to be kind of that teed up year for CeeDee Lamb, and in many ways it has shown itself to be that. But yeah, he's not that guy probably that's going to break off those 165-yard games. It's probably not in his range of outcomes, but if the volume's going to be there, if he's going to continue to win the way that he's winning with the air yards, then I do like him.
Yeah, I mean, it is scary kind of fading Walker after watching him previously now, because like imagine what Walker can be when the Seattle team eventually like gets good again. Like remember the starting running back in Seattle?
Yeah, it was always great.
What that meant, yeah, just a few years ago.
It could be an absolute ticking time bomb with Geno Smith, though, and there's no time to go into this conversation. But as a Seahawks fan, coming from Russell Wilson, interestingly seeing him now, like there is an unfinished freeway overpass that we are driving towards, and it's improbable that we fucking sky over the top of it and make it to the other side. We will miss, Nick. We will.
You've got a flat tire, y'all. Y'all just haven't realized it yet.
It's coming out. All right. Well, listen, Nick, I want to give you an opportunity to win my cash. Nobody's done it yet. Now, up above, Cody, a couple guys gave you some answers here. This is great advice. Cody said, FYI, Nick, answer all first 2 questions fast as possible as you can, and then think for the last one. So you got to go quick on the first 2, and then really think about the third one. And no Googling. By the way, Nick, the thing is, I'm concerned that there's a whole team BDGE in there with laptops pulled up right now, ready to
I will go fingers in my ears as well as like hands off deck, so I'm not looking. Whoa!
There it is. Look, I may not be able to make videos where I blow shit to smithereens, but I've got a steel case full of cash, and I'm going to send your way.
Just as sexy. If
you can beat me in my own game. All right, let's run the intro.
This is it. That's impossible. Oh, my God. That is impossible.
All right, man. So here's how it works. I'm going to read the first question, then I'm going to hit the timer. You've got 20 seconds. You got to get all 3 questions correct to win the cash. Are you ready?
Let's do it.
All right. What type of crust do you prefer on your pizza?
Thin.
Oh, my God. Do you believe in Bigfoot?
Yeah, no.
How many career interceptions did Brett Favre have in Green Bay? 5 seconds.
164.
Oh, God. Lord of Light, thank you for protecting my money again. 286.
You 286?
In Green Bay.
I thought 164 was just going to be an outrageous fucking number, honestly.
No, you did better than I thought you would, actually. I don't know. You used so much time in the beginning.
Well, I mean, I didn't need time. More time was not going to help me answer that fucking Brett Favre question, dude. That's an impossible question to know. You either know that or you don't. Also, wait, what the fuck is the point of the first 2 questions?
Just to get in your head.
Okay, so you just asked 2 dumbass questions, and then the only one that actually matters is the third one, and you ask a fucking asshole question. Okay.
That's how the game works. I let you get 2 right and feel good about yourself.
Fucking game with stupid fucking rules that I would not have participated in if you fucking told me about it.
Well, that's why I didn't tell you about it, because obviously, like, I need you at your best, which that was good. It was a good run. I mean, I think we did.
Let's go again. That was a test run.
You want 3 more?
I want 3 more.
Let's do it. Are you ready to do 3 more right now? Here, I got it for you. Okay, here we go. This has never happened before. I've never given anybody a second chance. Nobody's ever had a second chance before. All right. Let me write this down right now.
You just have like a list of dumb questions to ask?
Yeah, I do. And you know what? Just for that, I'm going to make this one. I'm going to give you a question.
Give me the hardest question of all time.
Okay.
Not just on your show, in the human history.
Okay. Why are you on Google or some shit? What?
No.
I
mean, I was just going through tabs, but I don't know what the fucking question is. It doesn't matter.
Well,
I'll put my hands up when we're answering, and look, they're here.
All right, here we go. All right. I don't actually know the answer to this last question, but I'm sure you'll get it wrong, so we'll look it up later.
No. How are you going to ask me a question that doesn't even have an answer?
Okay, I'm going to look it up. It's going to take me 1 second. Give me a sec here. I've never, Nick, just because it's you, I'm going to do this.
This game is so corrupt.
Well, my people are pretty corrupt with finances. Let's hear how it's on.
You got to get me in touch with your people. I need those people.
I will. Okay, here we go. All right. All right, man. This is, you know what, dude? Never done this for anybody. Only for you. I would never do this for anybody else. I can't say that enough. Okay. Are you ready for your redo? Now that you understand how the game works?
Yeah, I've been ready. You're the one who's not ready.
Well, because I didn't know I was going to have to read you 3 more questions. Nobody's gotten 6 questions. This is like Albert Pujols coming up to bat for the last time. They're like, fuck it, give him 4 strikes this time. All right.
Give him 4 strikes.
Okay. All right. Here we go, man. What is your hat size?
Fucking 6 3/4.
Spell Favre backwards.
ERVAF.
Yeah, that's actually right. How tall is the Empire State Building?
I know it's fucking right. Keep going. Say that again.
How tall is the Empire State Building?
Bruh.
You're in New York.
732 feet.
It might almost literally be twice that amount. 1,454 feet to the tip. We always measure to the tip.
We know you do, Nate.
We always do. Start at the base, measure to the tip. That's always how you measure, right?
I would like to appeal that because we're putting in like unnecessary words in the middle of the judging, like, oh, that was actually correct. Like, I know it's correct. Move on to the next question.
Listen, what do you want from me? You want to do 9 questions?
I want my fair 20 seconds. When I answer how to spell Favre backwards and I do it correct, you sit there thinking for 3 seconds.
I had to check it.
You sit there for 3 seconds, then you go, actually, that's correct. Like, there's that's 32% of my time.
Okay, by the way, I have to confirm in real time.
Run it back.
I have to confirm in real time. All right, fine.
Then give me an easier fucking question, not one that you have to spell check.
Okay, you know what? We're going to do this. I'm writing these right now. I can't believe we got people in the chat. One more turn. This is fucking chaotic right now. That tall guy, always measure base to tip. And at the base, make sure you push in. All right, let's see here. Okay. This fucking guy, I can't believe you. Okay. All right, let me get this last one here. Okay, wow. You know what? Okay, I got it. I've never done this before. This is just... Okay. For the 3rd fucking time, are you ready?
Yes.
Okay. What is your shoe size?
9.
What is your mom's birthday?
September 4th. Next.
How many miles is Earth from Pluto?
You're a fucking...
Yeah, eat this one.
$6.3 million.
3.2 billion.
Damn. I was like kind of close though.
Listen, yeah. I mean, I'm sure.
Like I wasn't like embarrassingly far off, you know. Like
Listen,
I wasn't like 4,000 miles or like 8 quadrillion. I was like in the million billion range.
right. You didn't go with a gajillion, which is good. That would
I
have
think
been
a lot of people in the chat right now would have fucking cracked under pressure and said something like 45 miles or something. You know what I mean?
Oh man, dude, people are saying we need to do a full feature show where I just bring people on and ask them these questions. So listen, man, you gave it your all out there. That was a respectable outing. Dude, appreciate the feature. You're always one of those guys that it's just fun. You're organic. You push back on stuff. You know, you've got well-informed takes. So, and it's evident why you've had so much success, man. So, plug what you got to plug, brother. You were talking about that new podcast you're doing, which I think sounds amazing. So plug that and where people can find you, of course.
Yeah, dude. Thank you for having me. I don't really like doing content at night, to be honest with you. I'm usually like working a lot during the day, and then nighttime kind of rolls around. It's my time to like decompress. But I like doing pods with you, dude. So
thanks, man.
that is, you know, it's not a lot of people I would get on here for when the lights are bright in my face right now, and I got sleep coming in a couple hours. But just a compliment to you, man. I really like you as a dude as well. So it's always fun coming on here and chopping it up. So yeah, me and my friend Jack Settleman are doing a podcast called Big Content, where basically we're just talking about the creator economy. We're talking about the hopefully like helping people, teaching people if they want to get into the content game, the smart path to take right now, because it can be confusing. It can be hard to stay on top of different trends and where you should be putting your time and effort to. And I know a lot of dudes like yourself included in this industry work really hard and have great work ethic and put out a lot of good, valuable content, but sometimes don't really know the best approach to helping themselves realistically, like helping themselves grow. So we want to hopefully be that like barrier between media companies, brands, and the individual creator. Because at the end of the day, that's like, you know, that's who I was. That's where I started, and a lot of shit that I had to learn in order to get to where we are. So I love teaching. I kind of like view myself as a teacher, and I'd love to pass on the things that I do learn. So Big Content, podcast, YouTube channel, all that sheesh.
Love it, dude. No, it's evident, man. You've put out so many videos over the years and done features where you talk about the business of this, and you've been forthright about things and tried to, you know, show people that like you can get where you're at. I thought it was gonna be fucking hilarious. I didn't have time to set it up. When we did that game, I was gonna green screen in your old bedroom behind me because I thought it would be like a psychological effect, like basketball.
I would have let the time would have ran out. I wouldn't have even fucking
shocked. I couldn't pull it off, dude. I was gonna get my wife to like swing the green screen in behind me. It's a full feature show. I get my wife involved.
Hell yeah, dude. That's I mean, I don't want to come on a show if the wife ain't involved.
That's true, man. That's what we do.
If I'm not doing the show from my old bedroom, I don't fucking want in anymore. I would have lost my shit if you did that.
I wish, man. I thought about it. It's just, it's too many irons in the fire, Nick. I wanted to, but it was just improbable at this point. So, again, man, appreciate you coming on. Dude, I feel like I don't get an opportunity to work with you enough. Like, I always see you doing stuff, and I'm like, God damn it, I want to do more work with him. So hopefully we can work some stuff out in the future, maybe when we get out of the season a little bit and things calm down a bit. Everybody in the chat.
Ass out to New York, dude.
Yeah, dude, let's do it, man. I'd love to get together. I want to talk to you about some YouTube stuff. I'm not going to bore these people with the same questions, but everybody in the chat, thank you guys for turning out, man. Really appreciate the viewership that we had tonight. Hit the like button on the way out. We had a second person hit the down thumb, whatever. What an ass. What an asshole. Probably didn't like the Rashad Bateman takes. I don't know what it was. But anyways, guys, thanks for tuning in. Nick, thank you for coming on. Of course, follow him if you're not already. And I will be back next week with Josh Larkey, and we're gonna be cooking up some real oddball data shit. I'm gonna push him to the brink. He might win that money. See you guys later.
He's definitely gonna win that shit.